Hey everyone, it's the Shawn. Welcome to another version of the Journey to CEO show. Today we're going to be talking about wealth management in 2020, things that you as a business owner, business leader might want to be thinking about. This is part of our Journey to CEO video series here on the YouTube channel, where we look at that move from how do you go from being just a business owner, entrepreneur with an idea to becoming an actual CEO of an enterprise. And is that even the right journey for you? As part of the Journey to CEO project, and Gatty and I, my co-host who will be joining me shortly, we uncovered the idea that not every business owner should be striving to become a CEO. That's often a mismatch. And sometimes you're better in a specific spot on that journey, and you may want to capitalize on your specific skill set, what you really enjoy. But today we're going to be talking about some wealth management concepts, what you should be thinking about. I'm going to bring both Ann and Vic up on the screen with me so that they can say hi. Hey, Vic, thanks for joining us today.
Hello, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And why don't we do another? Why don't I let you do an introductory remark? Talk a little bit about just kind of what we're seeing with CEOs and how there's, how the wealth issues play into that journey to CEO.
Well, we just have been working with this journey to CEO for quite a while now, a couple of years. We've been studying the stages that people go through. And I do a lot of work with business development and helping entrepreneurs plan out not just the beginning stage, but where they want to end up. And that's why wealth management becomes an issue, becomes a concept that we need to be talking about all through the journey. Because when you're building your business, you're not just building it for a paycheck as you're going along, you're building it for the wealth that it can produce if you sell the business, or if you are going to maybe have a succession plan where you are leaving it to your family members. Anyway, along this journey, you need to be considering how you're planning for your exit and what kind of monies you're going to need to actually survive after you leave business.
I think the other thing that's unique for business owners too is that concentration of wealth, right? You have the concentration of wealth in your business. So Vic, maybe you just want to talk about that. I mean, a lot of the standard wealth management stuff we see is geared towards employees, people that are getting a regular paycheck all the time, and business owners really have a different situation than your average person.
You're absolutely right. The business owner has oftentimes the vast majority of their wealth, their personal balance sheet, if you will, is tied up in the business, and it's not valued every day. Was it really worth? Like anything in life, it's worth what someone else is willing to pay for it at any given time. Mm-hmm. And the business owner, if they don't put a good team around them, and to Ann's point, what is the ultimate goal? Is it an exit? Who you're going to sell to? A competitor? Is it going to be to family? Is it going to be to some of your top management team? If the business owner or group of business owners is not looking at the long term and saying, yeah, I'm pulling a nice salary out of here, I enjoy what I do, they're not going to be prepared for the next step of their life if the exit doesn't provide enough nest egg. As you said, Shawn, the typical employee, I fill up my 401k and I have other investments and such. Someone like me, a certified financial planner professional, and part of my background, I'm a recovering CPA, so I don't mind crunching the numbers, is having a sense for, is the ultimate exit going to generate enough money for me to sustain my lifestyle going forward?
Not to mention just have that concentration of wealth, right? You have this one very illiquid asset in the case of most business owners, right? You have a lot of money tied up in your business, which means your 401k balance is going to look different, but you also have a different risk profile because so much of your wealth is in one place.
And not to bring up a painful situation, is we had a pandemic this year. And it affected businesses, small, large, what have you, the privately owned business, much more than our last crisis, which was 08 and 09. We could go on for hours how companies have had to pivot, that four-letter word that people hate to talk about and are afraid to address. How do you pivot? How do you stay alive? How do you maintain? How do you see yourself through the other side? And to your point, Shawn, I love the word, that concentrated part of your balance sheet is in this business, not unlike an executive level CEO or a C-level type person that has a lot of stock options or what have you, and you really need to pay attention and be honest with the risk and say, how do we do some risk management and potentially if something goes sideways, how are we not going to get crushed because of it?
Yeah. If you're joining us live or on the recording, we'd love to hear what your experience has been, and how kind of your business plays into your portfolio and what you've done to kind of manage that. We always love to hear from our viewers. So if you're watching it live or on recording, go ahead and drop us a comment. Let us know. And I'm going to pass it back over to you again.
Well, the one thing that I think we always suggest, and Vic is talking about this, is that you do need a team around you. Not only do you need a good banker, you need a financial planner like a Vic. You need also your legal advice so that you have the documents in place, your operating agreements. Also, as we've been saying about concentrated risk, you start to be able to plan and say, what are my alternatives? We don't like to plan for pandemics or anything like that, but we do like to say, okay, if something goes wrong, where can I go? How can I move forward? And so we do suggest that as you're going through this journey, and everybody, we found that the journey has the same stages of development, no matter what the revenue level is. And so as you're going through stages in developing your business, you need to check in and make sure that, okay, here's where I am right now. Is this financially stable? Do I need to make some shifts? And that's why you need some outsiders that can be your advisory board on this and help you along the way, because you're good at what you do, whether you're manufacturing, whether you're a coach, whether you're doing some consulting, you're very good at that, but you may probably not also have the same level of expertise in the legal and financial side. So that's why it's important that you put, people around you. And I'd be interested for Vic to maybe share with us some of the changes that he saw this year because of the pandemic, and how has he been advising his clients, perhaps in a different manner than he might have been had we not had the pandemic. So Vic, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a big question, Ann. And my role as a financial planner is I'm involved with the planning. I know enough about the law to know that I need to bring an attorney in. I joke that I'm a recovering CPA, but I let that tax work to a full-time real CPA, if you will. So I'm looking at budgeting. I'm looking at the investment management, the rebalancing, the risk profile. When are we going to be retiring? That sort of thing. On the insurance side, it could be some key person insurance. If there's other business owners involved, we have a buy-sell agreement where we're funding that. During the pandemic, I think everyone that was wise took an honest and chilling look at their cash flow. What's realistic? What are the must-haves and what are the want-to-haves? What are, from a business owner's perspective, what's a project that we wanted to do this year, but the reality is we need to put time, resources, and money to something else to just stay afloat? Some business owners had the luxury, if you will, they took advantage of this and created another vertical and accelerated a project, because all of a sudden I can think of a local business. We're in the Pittsburgh area. Client of mine, I'll be careful with the details, a music store. And 10 plus years ago, they realized, family owned, kids are involved now, and more people were buying online. So they made that jump. They still have a great store locally. If you play the guitar or play the keyboards, it's an amazing place to walk into, but they're selling more and more online. So they were fortunate to say, like a lot of states, they couldn't have people come into the store, but they pushed effort and money and promotion to online. And to their credit, with the PPP loan, they haven't had to lay anybody off. So hopefully that's a good example. But I'd say is whether it's the financial crisis, whether it's a personal crisis, whether it's the pandemic of 2020, it's taking an honest look at your situation, and don't be afraid to say, I don't know what I don't know, and surround yourself with a great trusted team of other advisors, because all of us, we're human, is we fall into the trap of tunnel vision and we don't see the bus that's right around the corner. But if we have someone on our team, maybe they can help see that bus for us.
Yeah, and I think a big thing is, of course, this year is now everybody I think's tuned back into market volatility again, right? So it seems like every time we have one of these downward trends, then people start thinking about it again, Vic. So what are you hearing from people just with kind of their sentiments about the market and their nerves about their money? I mean, obviously now we've seen your business you own has some market exposure and risk, but then the broader market also has market exposure and risk. So what are people saying about just risk generally, Vic, and their tolerance for it?
I'll speak to that in two perspectives. One, my own client base, and it's relatively small, about 150 relationships, higher net worth, higher net income. And I'm pleasantly surprised. In general, most clients from the investment volatility perspective were handling it better than I was. I tend to be very invested with their feelings, and clients were actually reaching out to me before I could reach out to them saying, "Hey, Vic, don't worry, we're going to get through this." There's a different story in 08, 09. And I think economists or psychologists in a few years will have a chance to study and interview people and why was the reaction the way it was. And you're also very right in that, people are willing to take risk when things are going well. I like to joke the market will continue to go up until it doesn't. And then all of a sudden the tide goes out and you're like, oh, shoot, I didn't realize I was that exposed, whether it be equities or different types of bonds. The other way I'll share with you is just reading professional journals and what they're doing in terms of research and surveys and what have you. And for the most part, it was pretty similar to what I saw with my client base. It was, Vic, we're properly allocated, whether I'm 35 years old, 55 years old, or 75 years old. And we'll get through this. We have equities for a reason, for growth. We have bonds for stability and ballast. And we have the cash flow. We have emergency reserves. And we'll get through this. And that's what pretty much surveys have shown, too, that for the most part, people have stuck through this. And if they had a good plan, they stuck with the plan. And knock on wood, it's only been a few months, but the rebound has been shockingly amazing. And I haven't had any clients jump off the roof as a result of the volatility.
Yeah, and that sounds like something we talk about is sticking to your plan. Of course, a lot of people have had to adjust their plan because of COVID-19. I mean, I think there's really two groups, right? The ones where like your long-term plan still works. You just have to make some tweaks. And there's people that also have to go back and revisit their long-term plan because their industry may have shifted greatly.
Well, we see a different, they may have to change their model somewhat. I loved Vic's example of the music store, because we are seeing that people who were able to look at the opportunities were able to maybe come up with another revenue stream, and were able to adjust and adapt. And that's what I've seen with clients, is trying to help them look at their model, and is it still a working model, or do we realize that, we're not in control of the environment, and now we're going to have to adapt more. We thought it was more stable. We were building our business on a stable environment. It's not stable now. So those kinds of changes, I think, are important. And it's also important, Vic, with his clients, they are comfortable with not only with him, but also they're comfortable knowing, okay, we're in a difficult situation, but we'll get through this. It's important for the entrepreneur who may have staff and may have clients, obviously has clients, but has staff as well, to help the staff get through it. And it's important that the entrepreneur be able to be vulnerable and say, hey, look, this is a tough time, but also be able to say, we're going to make it through this, and we're going to see that we can keep our staff, especially if you got your PPP monies, then you might have been able to keep the staff or find ways that they could do different things. Restaurants all of a sudden were in the takeout business. So those kinds of things I think are very helpful, that you as the entrepreneur and CEO have to stay calm and have to have ask for advice where you need it, but have to have that confidence that you can make it through. So the rest of your team feels that as well.
Yeah, Vic, why don't you comment a little bit on kind of that confidence and sticking to your plan over time? And I just want to remind folks you're watching the Journey to CEO show live on YouTube, also available on recording. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for notifications. So Vic, talk about the planning and sticking to people's plans over time.
And I initially want to totally echo Ann's comments. As the business owner, whether you're the CEO or whatever role you're playing, if you're viewed as the leader of the organization, business department that you work in, fear breeds fear and optimism breeds optimism. Certainly don't lie, but everyone is scared. And if their leader that they look to, and you, the business owner, CEO, who ultimately signs their paycheck, is showing a lot of fear, that's going to permeate through everything, and it makes it really, really difficult to get through a difficult time. Getting back to the plan, it sounds easy, but it's hard. We are human. We make emotional decisions more often than logical decisions, and sometimes I feel like I'm a therapist. If I've had a client during this time where they were also a client in 07, 08, 09, I put my therapist hat on and say, hey, Mary and John, remember we had something similar, a bad market, maybe you lost your job and found something later. We got through that. And I'm confident that even though 10, 12 years later, we'll get through this again because we have a good plan. We'll stick to the plan. And oftentimes, emotionally, it's hard to stick with the plan. Not to get too into the nuts and bolts, but from the investment perspective, people like me always talk about what's the proper asset allocation. And let's say, for example, in your case, it's 60% stocks and 40% bonds. And we just had a big decline in the stock market, and now you're 50-50 stocks and bonds. The logical thing to do is to do something called rebalance. The emotional thing to do is say, hey, Vic, you're telling me to take money from what just did well and didn't get blown up and put it into something that just went down 30 or 40%? And the answer is yes. And that's the emotional, hard, but logical thing that needs to be done. And I'll wrap there saying, if you have a good plan, stick to the plan. You don't blindly stick to it. But if tax laws change, something like that happens as well, that you have to, dovetail into the plan as well. And we've had some significant tax law changes as the result of the pandemic, the Secure Act and the CARES Act in 2020.
Yep. And you want to comment in there?
Well, I just think it just echoes that you need to have good advice around you. You need to have your financial planner, your CPA, your lawyer. You need also to have people that you're talking to within your industry that can help you understand the trends that are going on. But it's important that you are not, as Vic says, just blindly going along. You can be secure that you've got a plan, but you still want to talk about growth. You still want to say, hey, even during the pandemic, how are we going to grow from this? And that's just keeping your eyes and ears open, is what I think Vic has been saying all along.
And if I could interrupt, another member of the team is having a good relationship with your banker. It doesn't have to be a big national bank. During this time with getting the PPP loan, the community banks that did what they needed to do to have the relationship with the SBA did an outstanding job. And so it's, let the lawyer do the legal work, let the CPA do the accounting work, let me be somewhat of a head coach involved with that too. Let's interact with the banker. And you can't say team. You really can't say team enough.
You know what? You're absolutely correct. I forgot the banker, but I do to mention the banker. But I do know that the bankers that had good relationships with their clients who were applying for the PPP, that went through much smoother. But I would also say about the banker, if you have loans, you're letting your business, you borrowed money against some of your assets, and you're for your growth. The banker, you need to be talking to your banker about, is it time to refinance, or is this a good, with the market and with what things are going on along the financial streams. It just may be a good time for you to take a look at that as well and say, you know what, we're going to refinance, take it out a little longer than, I'm almost paid off on my loan. Maybe I want to take it out again so that I have my cash flow, because cash is king. And that's what your bankers are going to tell you. And I think that's what Vic has said. So don't forget to look at how you have your monies in your banking as well.
And I'll go on with you. Every business owner, every CEO is also an individual. So a lot of these conversations also happen on the personal level. Having the relationship with the banker is now a good time to refinance our personal mortgage or any other debts that we may have, going on out there. We've, older parents have kids that may have co-signed student loans. Is that something that we look at as well from a, getting our debt management under control and lower interest rate and increasing our cash flow? So you as business owners and CEOs, unfortunately, have two hats you have to wear. You have business related decisions. To Shawn's point, a very high concentration of your wealth is tied up in that business, but also you're an individual and you have those personal individual planning items that you need to address as well.
Yep. Folks, hope you're subscribed to the Journey to CEO YouTube channel and hope you've rung the bell to get notifications so you can join us for future episodes. Of course, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, we'd love a like and a share. And so, Vic, you've been a wonderful wealth of information. How do people reach out to you, get to know you better, and maybe work with you in the future?
The quick, easy way is to probably reach out to my website, www.pinnaclestrategies.org. On there, you'll find all my contact information. But beyond that, Shawn, I'll say honestly, I'm not one that does a lot of marketing. I don't do advertising. I'm not super big on social media. It's really my new client relationships are probably 90% of the time a direct introduction from another advisor, the banker, the coach like Dr. Ann, the CPA, the business planning attorney or estate planning attorney. So long answer to a short question, but there you go, Shawn.
There you go. Yeah, I understand. Relationship business and finding the right fits, I think it's very important. And you've just kind of demonstrated understanding your business model, which is something we talk a lot about in our Entrepreneur CEO book, and really doubling down on your way to do business. And you just gave us a great example of that, Vic. So thanks for being such a wonderful guest. Folks, join us. Make sure you drop some comments. Journey CEO YouTube. We want to read them. We want to hear from you. Let us know what future guests you want to have and what questions you might have for us or Vic. Drop them in the comments. Thanks for joining us, everybody, today.
Thanks for having me. I had fun.
Thanks, Vic.